The night air that drifted through the arrow keep of the high tower smelled of salt, old vellum, and range oil from the lanterns. Archmaester Ahriman drew his robe tighter as he crossed the bridge of gray stone that linked the map gallery to the hidden annex, where the glass candles were kept. Below, the harbor lights rippled on black water like coins cast for drowned gods. And somewhere far out at sea, a bell tolled in warning of an approaching storm. To Ahriman, the sound was a benediction. Storms swallowed truths, muddied shorelines, and left behind only those scraps of driftwood that the willful might fashion into something useful. He reached the door, plain oak veined with centuries of finger marks, and pressed his thumb to the iron stud shaped like a seven-pointed star. The locking rune, sewn into the stud by a smith who had died 2 generations earlier, tasted the salt of his skin and parted its wards with a hushed click. Inside, the heart of the dark glimmered. 4 glass candles, 1 green, 1 black, 2 pale as milk, burned with no visible flame, their light thin yet piercing as needles. Reflections stirred in the candlelight, voices without mouths, roads without travelers, armies that had not yet marched. All might be given form, if one only whispered the right words. Ahriman touched the silver chain about his neck. 6 links long, 1 for each discipline in which he had earned mastery. The 7th lay unfinished, but the metal for it slumbered in a lockbox under his cot, a bar of Valerian steel no wider than a finger, gifted in secret by the 12-fingered merchants of Korth after a night of bargains and riddles. When the link was forged, it would make him the first Archmaester in 300 years to possess a chain that included the lost art. And in that moment, every promise born in this candlelit chamber would blaze bright enough to burn kingdoms. He bowed his head as an old habit, pretense of humility, and spoke, not to the room but to the hidden thing on the far side of the glass queer glow. "The hour has come," he murmured. "Send me the dream." Color coiled inside the green candle, jungle vines strangling a silver crown, a red star bleeding across a winter sky, swords folding into plowshares, while children wept at empty hearths. Then a voice like wet parchment rasping over stone. "The realm shall be ruled by quills, and iron crowns by whispered quills undone. The last dragon will die not in flame, but in ink, and the prince that was promised will be promised no more." Ahriman let the words soak into the hollows of his bones. "So it shall be," he answered. "We will make a prince, unmake a king, and write the world anew." He pinched out the candles one by one, though no heat wrung a hiss from his fingertips. Darkness returned, but it no longer belonged to night. It belonged to him. A week later, under skies the color of beaten pewter, a weather-beaten cog named Starling warped alongside the old town quay. From the gangplank stepped a youth of about 19 in a maester's dun, though the chain at his throat bore only 2 links. Lead for history and brass for cartography. His eyes were green as moss after rain, his hair a tangle of seaside brown. And his name, at least the one the Citadel kept, was Benrick Waters. To the world he was a half-trained functionary sent to replace a dead scribe in the harbor records office. To Archmaester Ahriman, he was a seed cast into fertile soil. Benrick felt the weight of a scrap of parchment sewn inside his sleeve. A single stanza of prophecy, copied in ink that shimmered faintly red when held to lamplight. His instructions were clear. In 3 days' time he would sail again, this time bearing a cage of ravens, routed for every major holdfast from Sunspear to the Shadow Tower. Once aloft, the birds would carry that stanza, altered in 3 small but crucial ways, to the ears of lords who trusted maesters more than they trusted their own kin. Rumor would bloom, fear would fruit, and the harvest would be a realm unmoored from certainty. Still, doubt tugged him. He had been a bastard oarsman 5 years ago, scrubbing decks and stealing crusts. Now he trespassed in the domain of kings, with nothing but forged words. He turned toward the towering mass of the high tower and thought he saw, through an upper window, a thin green flame dancing. Benrick swallowed. If light itself could burn without fuel, perhaps lies could govern without swords. 300 leagues north, beyond the bustle of King's Landing and the golden sweep of the Reach, Maester Theomore poured mulled ale into a chipped cup and watched Lady Elisane Stark pace the smoky length of Winterfell's solar. Dawn had not yet breached the broken-toothed horizon, but ravens cared little for mortal convenience. The bird that jarred them from sleep still flapped and scratched against its wicker home, awaiting its next command. Lady Elisane, hard-jawed and spare as a frost-stripped oak, thrust the message into Theomore's hands. "Read." He obeyed, candlelight wavering over the page. "When the red star bleeds, so too shall the north. A king in the snow shall bend the knee to no flame but his own. Yet steel melts in dragonfire, and dragonfire drinks the cold." The words thrummed with portent, yet yielded nothing solid. That was their genius. A man who heard them might arm for invasion. Another might sue for peace. A third might kill his kin to prove himself the prophesied king. Uncertainty was a many-bladed knife. Theomore's belly chilled at the realization that he could not name the author's hand. Ravens bred in rookery after rookery. Scripts mingled, parchment aged. By the time prophecy reached Winterfell, it wore a whisper's mask. He met Elisane's flinty gaze. "My lady, these are riddles meant to disquiet." "Disquiet?" She barked a brittle laugh. "They are meant to divide. The last we need is more southern riddles steering northern fates." Inwardly, Theomore agreed, yet said, "Better to read every sign. Old Town's chroniclers can divine comet paths and tidal shifts. If fire and ice truly threaten, Old Town." The name was a sour draught. Grand Maester Orwyle assured my brother these same riddles in King's Landing speak of Darren's line. Now they sing another tune. How many princes can be promised before the promise breaks? A question with edges, and one that would echo far beyond Winterfell's gray walls. In the capital, the promise was already breaking. King Darren III, descendant of Baelor Breakspear by a cadet limb of the Targaryen tree, sat on the Iron Throne as if it were a pyre awaiting the spark. His hair, once silver bright, dulled with worry. His hands twitched atop the hilts of phantom swords. Behind the throne loomed Sir Jorah Oakheart of the Kingsguard, white cloak hanging heavy in the breathless heat clinging to the hall. And before the throne knelt Maester Orwyle. A scroll lay unfurled in the maester's spotted hands. Its wax bore the chiseled sigil of the Citadel, an open book beneath a seven-spoke star. Yet the ink glittered as if it had not dried fully. The words within spoke of a darkness rising in the east, of dragons hatched from stone, of a three-headed shadow that would devour sun and moon alike unless the withered king rooted out those of his blood who lacked the true spark. No names were given. Prophecy had no need. Suggestion sufficed. Darren's voice, when it emerged, cracked like thin ice. "My children will not be named heretics in my own hall, Your Grace." Orwyle sighed, as though scolding a wayward pupil. "Prophecy warns so that we may act. The Citadel merely advises vigilance. Blood tests can be fashioned. Alchemical reagents to reveal the false dragon seed. Bendana one. To what end?" The king's words echoed off blackened steel. "Cut my line to save my line. If your line is infirm," Orwyle murmured, "the surgery can be curative." The throne room seemed to shrink. Sir Jorah's knuckles whitened on his sword belt. Elsewhere, in the shadows of the gallery, the Master of Whispers, an almond-eyed Lyseni eunuch known only as Kazan, pressed two fingertips together, lips curving at knowledge newly gained. The Citadel was cutting deeper than rumor. It was writing law from nightmare. That knowledge, well placed, could purchase many debts. But for Darren, knowledge became a chain thicker than any forged by blacksmiths. He felt each link as a weight of doubt. Had not his second son dreamed of black wings? Had not his niece spoken Valyrian in her sleep? Each flicker of memory became a sign, each sign a blade at the root of his house. "Bring me Grand Maester Pycelle," he ordered, voice nearly lost amid coughing courtiers. "We must study these words." Orwyle bowed with the serenity of one who had already won. Ehrman watched the swirl of events in the smoke of a brazier small enough to cradle in his palms. The brazier was wrought of dragon glass, mined from the cliffs of Dragonstone, and inscribed with glyphs so fine the eyes skipped over them. Within its bowl, a pinch of powdered pearl, and 3 flakes of dried basilisk blood burned with no flame. Images rose. Daron's haunted face, Alysanne Stark's clenched fists, Benrick's ravens spiraling north and east. They danced, then darkened, fading into oily swirls. Eramon closed his eyes to savor the moment's stillness. Manipulating prophecy was not a single stroke, but a patient weaving. Tug one thread and a distant tapestry tightened. Tug another and a kingdom unraveled. Too swift a pull, and the loom might shatter. Too slow, and the weaver lost the hour. Balance, always balance. Footsteps clicked beyond the study's iron lattice. A match struck. Lamplight quivered over parchments. Eramon did not turn as Archmaester Valar entered. Valar's chain clinked, a living serpent of iron, silver, and black iron links, while his breath rasped with the rattle of an old smoker. "You overreach," Valar croaked. "Kings do not forget being made fools." "Nor do archmaesters," Eramon countered softly, "when lesser men call them such. Yet here you stand, still with power." Valar coughed wetly. "If you raise the realm's ire against us, no fortress of words will shield Oldtown. The faith remembers Maegor's torch. The north recalls the Red Wedding, all despised manipulations cloaked in prophecy." Eramon opened his eyes at last. "It is precisely their memories that turn the screw. Fear roots deeper than love, old friend." "Friend," Valar echoed, tasting the lie. "When does the fear yield to peace?" "When the Citadel wears the crown of quills," Eramon answered. "When swords follow ink, not ink swords. Then peace, the like of which the world has never known, or ashes unlike any ever seen." Valar bowed his head. "I have not the vigor to challenge you, but I will haunt your dreams if this ends in fire." Eramon smiled gently. "Dreams are mine to shape." Across the red mountains of Dorne, under a sky hot enough to crack lizard-lion shells, Princess Maris Martell strode along a shaded colonnade toward her brother's quarters. Each step chimed gold sandals on patterned tile, and each breath filled her with the citrus tang of crushed lemon trees below. Yet peace eluded her. 2 days prior she had received, from a raven roosting in Sunspear's highest turret, a single sheet bearing strange admonition: "The kraken and the sun shall drown alike. The sands will bleed the tears of dragons, and water shall ascend to the towers, unless the prince that was promised be denied his salt bride." Maris had read and reread the words until black letters blurred. A hidden sting lurked there. Salt bride. Everyone along the Sunshine Coast knew the ancient compact between Dorne and the Ironborn had died with Black Heron's fall. Yet rumors of a kraken fleet probing her coasts never fully sank. Now prophecy threatened doom if Dorne aligned with any would-be dragon prince. "And we have no dragon prince," she muttered. No sooner had she set foot outside her brother's door than the hinges moaned and Prince Quentyn emerged pale, scroll in hand. "You saw?" "I saw." She took his elbow, led him into the mosaic-lit chamber, closed the door. Wind rattled shutters like dice. "Who writes these portents? The Citadel? The warlocks of Korth?" Quentyn's jaw tightened. "Our maester claims the sigil matches Oldtown's archive. He swears the ink is genuine. I sent riders to the stepstones this morning yet." He exhaled. "Maris, every port reports the same. Merchant captains mutter of doom. If we so much as court alliance with Viserys heirs, we risk revolt in the villages. Our people once followed Queen Rhaenys willingly. They remember her dragon burned the will in his cave. They remember Sunspear-shaped shadows across their fields." He slammed the scroll on a cedar desk. "Prophecy is a sword, sister, and we have grown bareheaded." Maris pressed 2 fingers to her temples. "We may need our own counter-prophets, or our own maesters." Quentyn's eyes darkened. "One's not minted in Oldtown." In a wind-swept courtyard of the Citadel itself, Benrick Waters knelt beside a weathered rookery tower, tying message tubes to a brace of sleek midnight ravens. He worked methodically, though sweat glazed his neck despite the coastal chill. Each bird bore 3 parchments. One genuine prophecy stanza, one subtle variant tailored to incite a different fear, and one scrap of mundane port record meant to mask the larger scheme. No two castles would receive the same triad. The maesters who copied and forwarded them would muddy them further. Errors of script, misreadings of rhyme, and so the pattern would sprawl beyond reach, 1,000 versions of one deliberate lie. When the last raven fluttered into the gray dawn, Benric rose, knees stiff. Footsteps ground gravel behind him. Hail, fledgling. The voice belonged to Maester Wills, steward of the rookery, cheeks reddened by wind. Biting air for a southern boy. Benric forced a thin smile. The birds must fly before the sun warms. Willis prodded the wooden crate, now empty of birds. You've earned your bread. Archmaester Aramon notes your diligence. A thrill and a fear danced inside Benric's ribs. Approval from on high could raise a man, or paint a target on his back. He bowed. I live to serve. Then serve knowledge, Will said, producing a slim codex bound in cracked leather. Deliver this to the treasury vault. The lock clerks await. Benric accepted the book, noting its pale green ribbon. In Citadel code, that denoted restricted prophecy classification. He had become courier for truth so dangerous they could not be spoken. Or perhaps for further lies. The difference mattered less with each passing hour. Months slipped by in Westeros, yet the weave tightened. In the Vale, young Lord Jeremy Arryn argued with his council over a raven that claimed a snow-winged tyrant would ascend the Eyrie unless the falcon bowed to ink-born wisdom. The council debated whether to war upon the north or write homage to Old Town. In the Westerlands, Lady Sorrel Lannister weighed a letter that told of gold undone by quills of glass, and quietly seized her cousin's mines before he could pledge coin to King Daeron's rumored nephews. In the Riverlands, Lord Edmure Tully burned 3 contradictory prophecies, then called his banners anyway, for if every future promised ruin, mightn't it be safer to choose which ruin would come? War did not blossom in a single sunrise. It seeded in the heart's night. Yet across the realm walls thickened, trades thinned, and prayers grew urgent. Within the Red Keep, Maester Orwyle knelt in a secret alcove lined floor to ceiling with scrolls whose wax still cooled. Each bore the Citadel sigil. He unrolled one at random, read 2 lines, smiled, and passed it to the next pigeonhole. He did not need to know every thread to trust the tapestry's design. King Daeron's gaze, once bright with easy laughter, clouded. He ordered tests, cuttings of the finger sealed in vials of quicksilver, dream readings by torches, fed Hawk's heart. Children cried as healers bled them. Rumor said the queen wept until her lashes fell. But Maester Orwyle assured the king's sacrifices were the forge of peace. A realm united under untainted blood would stand forever. Not all listened quietly. Kazan the Whisper Master traced the letters of one prophecy across silk. A eunuch will strangle the dragon's song. He wondered if that eunuch might be him, or merely any eunuch with ambition. The ambiguity suited him. Every door opened when others feared what lay behind it. So he sought allies, gathering ragged cell-sails whose tongues wagged of Old Town gold and Maester's ink. Somewhere in the labyrinth of spymaster schemes, the Citadel's arrow earned a shadow twin. Deep beneath the high tower, in catacombs that predated the first men, a bell without clapper rang, though no hand touched it. Soundless, its vibrations shimmied over Aramon's skin as he stepped into the vault. On a pedestal of fossilized weirwood roots sat a single quill fashioned from a wyvern's hollow fang, bound at the hilt with starfire thread. Legends called it Old Will, or the Demon Scribe, said its ink, drawn from obsidian ground with human blood, could rewrite the deeds of the dead in the book of the living. Aramon unrolled a fresh scroll. His heart beat slow, deliberate. Took up the quill, wrote one sentence. The Citadel hereby assumes guardianship over the crown, pending the completion of the test of true blood. The words shone black in torchlight. He wrote a second. Let no sword be drawn in opposition, for prophecy has decreed ink the blade of rightful rule. The quill paused. He felt the vault breathe, as if the stone groots remembered sap and worshipped the bold. Then he wrote a third line, small as a dagger's sigh. And should prophecy be doubted, let prophecy be remade. The bell tremor ceased. Aramon sanded the parchment, folded it thrice, and sealed it with the ring of the conclave. Tomorrow, it would travel by Raven to King's Landing, Winterfell, Sunspear, every seat of note. And the day after, when the realm woke to find the Citadel speaking with the voice of gods, swords would hesitate. Hesitation begot doubt. Doubt begot surrender. All by ink. He slipped the scroll into a green leather tube and slid the tube into his robe. Thunder cracked. One of autumn's last storms crashing ashore. Somewhere, a child born under stormlight would open eyes bright with possibility. And somewhere else, a dragon would fail to hatch, its shell too thick for claws dulled by breeding. Such were the balances. Eramon climbed the spiral stair, emerging onto a parapet that overlooked Old Town's sleeping roofs. Lightning forked sea to sky, painting the harbor masts white for a heartbeat. He stretched his arms as if to hug horizon's edge. 5 centuries, he whispered. We mended the wounds kings made. Now we shall heal the disease at the root. A rook, black as a hole in daylight, landed on the battlement and cocked its head. Eramon fed it a morsel of dried fig. Fly north, he murmured. Carry my promise. The rook took wing. Its silhouette, sharp against storm gleam, dwindled until the night swallowed it whole. The storm's ragged echo reached Winterfell by morning. Maester Theomore woke to a rookery in uproar. Ravens pecking and screeching, feathers storming like soot. Amid the chaos he found a single bird calm, perched upon the map of the neck. Its eyes glimmered wolf's blood red, though that was surely a trick of dawn. The message tube at its leg bore green leather. Lady Alysanne tore the scroll before Theomore could. She read, lips thinning, then thrust it back at him. Madness. The Citadel claims regency over the throne itself. Her voice broke on a harsh laugh. When did maesters grow crowns? Theomore scanned the text. It cited omens, tests, rumors of bastard blood in Daeron's veins, promises of orderly transition. Yet its marrow was plain: obey, or be declared enemies of prophecy. His chest tightened. He had once believed in the Citadel's neutrality. Now he tasted betrayal like iron on his tongue. A raven will answer, Alysanne said, pacing. We will not kneel to quills. My lady, Theomore ventured. The Citadel commands the ravens. They might intercept or twist. Then riders it shall be. She halted at the window, snow catching in her hair, though winter was weeks off. We ally with other houses uneasy at Old Town's gall. The Eyrie, Sunspear perhaps. Even the Stormlands if they have half their grandsire's spine. Betty. And the throne? He asked gently. Daeron can keep it, if he proves loyal to his own blood. Else we find a king who will. Outside the yard rang with steel as guards drilled. Above them, the rook from Old Town circled thrice, then vanished into cloud. Benric Waters found Archmaester Eramon in the rhododendron garden, behind the scribe's court, pruning dead blossoms as if their wilt offended knowledge itself. Benric knelt, produced a folded parchment. Winterfell refuses, he said. Our riders report Alysanne Stark summons banners. Eramon clipped a brown petal. Expected. And Sunspear hoards grain, diverting harvest wagons inward. Rumor says Princess Maris Court sells ward captains from the disputed lands. Expected, Eramon repeated, eyes on the roseate leaves. Resistance is the whetstone of legitimacy. When the Citadel prevails despite it, our authority shines unassailable. But if they unite, they will not, Eramon said, slicing another stalk. Fear breeds suspicion. Alysanne frets over krakens, Maris over dragons, the Vale over snow-winged tyrants. Each prophecy unique, each threat dissimilar. They cannot march in concert while doubting one another's doom. Chandi. Benric hesitated. And if they realize the prophecy's conflict, then we offer certainty, Eramon said, rising. Certainty purchased at any price. He handed Benric a slip of parchment. Names, places, sums. Hire tongues to proclaim harmony between our verses. Bribe scribes to produce corroboration. A lie repeated by 3 mouths becomes as trusted as a father's word. Benric bowed, though his gut churned. He wondered if someday his own name might rest on such a slip, price matched to silence desired. Yet for now ambition drowned unease. He hurried off, wind whipping his cloak like a banner too tattered to name. On the last day of autumn, King Daron III collapsed during court, spitting blood flecked with black. He survived the fit, but whispers leapt ahead of physicians. Poison, the god's judgment, or the toll of inbred frailty long, rumored in dragonlords far from dragons. Grand Maester Picel bled him, dosed him with essence of nightshade, and prayed. Maester Orwyle wrote letters. 2 nights later, Lionsgate Street exploded in riot as smallfolk, panicked by portents of ink-borne regents and blood tests, attacked the Ropemakers Guildhall, believing it hoarded proof of the king's corruption. 60 died under watchful eyes of gold cloaks, too few to stem the tide. The riot ended when a wing of archers atop the Guildhall's roof loosed a single volley sealed with the Hightower sigil. Arrows fletched in silver gray with quills carved into each shaft. Whether the archers truly hailed from Old Town mattered little. Once the story raced across rooftops, the small folk scattered into silence thick with new fear. Fear that the Citadel's reach extended into every nook. Daron awoke to a city smoldering at its seams. Orwyle knelt beside the bed, voice gentle as a lullaby. My king, prophecy wields torches against those in denial. Yield and the flame becomes a hearth instead of a pyre. Daron's cracked lips moved. You would be the hearthkeeper? The Citadel guards knowledge, Orwyle replied, stroking parchment-caught skin. And your blood, if pure, will light the way. But a kingdom of uncertain lineage is a kingdom poised to shatter. In the corridor beyond, Kazan waited, motionless as carved teak. He had overheard everything. Tonight he would send pigeons, not ravens, carrying ciphers no maester could read. There were sellswords in the stepstones who cared little for prophecy yet much for coin. Some kings rose by ink, others by fire and steel. He would wager on the balance of both. Far away, above a moor where ghost grass whispered in slanting moonlight, Ahriman stood beside a standing stone that predated speech. Eyes closed. The Citadel's network thrummed. 1,000 ravens, 1,000,000 rumors, generations of trust funneled into one bold gamble. Yet he felt an old ache at the heart of it. The boy he had been, hungry amidst archives where noble scions strutted. They had laughed at a bastard's accent, his patched cloak, his questions that cut too deep. Knowledge alone had offered escape, but knowledge without power was a cage lined with books. So he would marry them, knowledge and power, quill and crown. Thunder drummed. He opened his eyes. For one fragment of heartbeat, he thought he saw a shadow moving among the stones, a boy shaped of mist, chainless yet shining. Then the night swirled, and he was alone. He lifted a glass candle, a traveler's wand of black crystal, no thicker than a wand, and spoke 7 words in Valyrian. Light pulsed within, green and cold, and the faces of kings and maesters, queens and bastards, swam across its length. He could almost taste their thoughts. Suspicion, awe, resentment, longing, all ripe, all ready. Tomorrow, he promised them, though only wind listened. The age of swords ends. The age of pens begins. May? The candle's glow spread along his palm, painting veins like emerald lightning. For the first time in decades, Archmaester Ahriman allowed himself to imagine what lay beyond even this triumph. Might the Citadel guide not only kingdoms but time itself, rewrite the songs of the first men? Smooth the chaos of conquest into harmony, prophecy as compass, ink as oar, and the Citadel the sole helmsman on the river of history. He smiled, and the darkness smiled back. In Winterfell, the first snows fell. In Sunspear, drought cracked the fountains to chalk. In the stepstones, black sails gathered like crows to carrion. Everywhere ravens flew, and everywhere prophecy's tune changed to match the ear that caught it. Yet through the shifting melody one refrain persisted. Trust the quill. Distrust the crown. Truth lies bound in black and brown. Where ink is law and fear is drawn, the world you knew shall be withdrawn. Lords chewed on those words until their molars ground flat. Small folk murmured them around cook-fires. Septons debated them in choirs. And in Old Town, beneath the beating heart of knowledge, Archmaester Aramon sharpened his quills and waited for the realm to bleed enough to beg for a healer. The realm bled. The Citadel listened. The quills sang. And somewhere, perhaps nearer than any dared guess, the last dragon, if indeed a dragon still lived, dreamed of fire so bright it could sear ink from parchment and leave only ash. The wind lay still over Old Town for 3 days after the autumn storm, as though the sky held its breath with the rest of the realm. In that hush, the Citadel's courtyards thrummed with hidden urgency. Ink ground thicker, quills honed finer, ravens consumed barrels of grain, while their keepers murmured over the virtue of red versus black wax. And in a vault whose door was barred by sigils older than the Hightowers themselves, Archmaester Aramon knelt before a rough stone altar and placed 7 objects in a line. A finger-length shard of dragonglass, a sprig of dried winter rose, a knucklebone from a drowned sailor, a loop of iron taken from the first keep at Winterfell, a sliver of golden heart from a ship at Winterfell, a sloughed snakeskin gathered at the base of the Red Keep's walls. He lit a thin taper of black beeswax and whispered Valyrian phrases barely older than the Doom, phrases that licked at memory like frostfire. The objects answered, some with a crack, some with a sigh, some with a scent so faint it stung only the corner of the mind. When the egg quivered, hairline cracks threading across its soot-gray shell, Aramon pinched out the taper and rose. No chick emerged. The shell simply fractured until it lay in 7 symmetrical shards that gleamed green in the faint candlelight. Omens did not need to breathe. They only needed to be seen. He collected the shards into a velvet pouch, slipped it inside his robe, and stepped into the corridor where Benrick Waters waited. The lad's face held the gray cast of sleepless nights, ink stains beneath the eyes where tears might have been, if he were less resolved. "We sail within the hour," Benrick said. "The cog Swanfeather takes me as far as Cape Wrath. From there a fisher shall smuggle me to Dragonstone." "Good," Aramon answered. "Remember, no sign of Citadel authority. You are a hedge scholar, seeking lost tongues of Valyria. Speak like one." "Benchi." "I remember," Benrick murmured, though he could have recited the plan backward. Aramon's hand settled briefly on the youth's shoulder. "What do you fear most?" "Failure," Benrick said. "You should fear success. Failure will kill you clean. Success binds you forever to its work." Aramon squeezed once, a pulse of iron through cloth, then let go. "On Dragonstone, you will leave 3 shards in the empty crypt beneath the old septide. In King's Landing, the other 4 go beneath the throne of Maegor's Holdfast. Blood or gold may be required to cross those thresholds. Spend both wisely." "Da." Benrick nodded. "And afterward?" "Afterward," Aramon said, "sail to Lys by any vessel that will not ask your name. Await my raven in the Black Cat Tavern. There you will learn whether you remain Benrick or become someone else entirely." For a heartbeat, the apprentice's green eyes flickered. Longing, dread, ambition all entwined. Then he bowed, offered the Archmaester a purse of polished words, for knowledge and the realm, and went. Aramon watched him depart down the spiral stair. So many threads now. Riders in the snow. Princes poisoned by doubt. Sel's words weighing coin against prophecy. The loom's frame creaked under the weight of a tapestry not yet finished. His lips shaped an unspoken charm to keep it from tearing too soon. Across the reach, autumn's last warmth clung to the apple orchards of Horn Hill, where Lord Randall Tarley paced the battlements with a wrathful expression. A raven from the Citadel lay crushed in his gauntleted fist, wax shattered like brittle bone. Its message named House Tarley, the spear of orderly transition, instructed him to ride on Highgarden and secure the Tyrell children for lineage verification. Randall snarled at the wording. He needed no prophecy to know what that meant. Tear the lordling from his mother, present him for alchemical testing, march him back should the blood prove correct. How many men would he lose to any who opposed Tarley Steele? Sir Brynden Flowers, his bastard cousin, trailed 2 steps behind. If Old Town commands, they command nothing, Randall barked. They cajole. But I'll be damned if I break bread with maesters one night and kidnap the lady's heirs the next. No. Yet if another obeys, Hornhill stands alone. Randall halted, eyes narrowing. No Tyrell will refuse me guest right, bastard though I am to them by marriage. I will ride to Highgarden, but to speak, not seize. He crushed the scroll anew for emphasis. And if the maesters send Steele in my wake, the Reach shall recall who won the Battle of Ashford. The bastard bowed. Shall I ready the honor guard? A small one. 20 knights. No banners but my own. Too few to threaten. Enough to make clear I bend the knee to none but the king. Randall spat over the parapet, saliva vanishing into mist. News travels faster than ravens. By the time we reach Highgarden, the Tyrells will know of the Citadel's demand. I mean to see their eyes when they weigh it. Sir Brynden offered a grim smile. Eyes speak truer than tongues. Indeed. Randall stared southward, where the faint rise of the Hightower's lantern winked pale against the horizon. And I intend to watch Old Towns burn if they make liars of my blood. In King's Landing the sky bled garnet at dusk, casting the towers of the Red Keep into teeth of flame. Grand Maester Pycelle shuffled from the king's bedchamber, beard trembling as though he bore an invisible burden upon his stooped back. Sir Jorah Oakhart accompanied him only to the archway. Sword unsheathed though no foe stood near. How fares his grace? Sir Jorah asked. Pycelle drew a handkerchief embroidered with the 7-pointed star and dabbed his brow. We have stilled the blood for now. The leeches bit well. Yet the king is weakened. His spirit bends beneath prophecy more than poison. Balwin. A door farther down the hall clicked open. Kezan the Whisper Master emerged clad in midnight silk. His expression revealed nothing, but his dark eyes flicked between maester and knight. Your counsel has burdened the crown, he said softly. Pycelle bridled. My counsel? I bleed him because someone else fed him venom. You speak as though that someone else may yet bleed the realm dry, Kezan murmured, stepping closer so the torchlight etched his cheekbones into plains of gold. The Citadel's newest decree reached the Street of Sisters within an hour of its Raven landing in the Rookery. Who bears guilt for that haste? Pycelle's eyes flickered left, right. I have not broken seals. You needn't, Kezan answered. Foundries will cast copies of a crown once they know its shape. Sir Jorah growled. Speak plainly. Kezan lowered his voice further. The city teeters. Cobblers riot in Flea Bottom, convinced the Citadel's blood tests will mark them impure. Dockworkers strike, fearing they are first for the blades should their grandmother's lineages prove false. The gold cloaks are stretched thinner than parchment. Nan? We cannot fight parchment with steel, Pycelle muttered, beard quivering. Words drive men mad. Then drown those words. Sir Jorah said, or write new ones, Kezan offered. A counter-prophecy, simpler, brighter. Pycelle snorted. Try forging the sun from wax. Wax holds many shapes. Kezan bowed. With your permission. Sir Jorah, I must attend to ravens bound for Storm's End. He vanished down the corridor like smoke curling into moonless night. Pycelle turned, hands fluttering. He means to spin more lies. Jorah sheathed his sword. So does the Citadel. I'd rather the realm drown in fewer. At Winterfell, Maester Theomore prepared a draught of green firemilk for a messenger thrown from his horse on the White Knife's icy ford. The man groaned while Theomore stitched a gash above his brow. Blood steamed in the cold so fiercely that Lady Alysanne Stark ordered braziers lit in the great hall at noon. Between stitches, Theomore glimpsed the courier's satchel. It bore no livery he knew, but the wax seal on one parchment displayed a crowned stag. Under more peaceful skies, the Starks and Baratheons found kinship only in old wars. These days, strange alliances sprouted like ghost mushrooms on graveyard stones. When the wounded man could speak, He rasped that Lord Renfred Baratheon, youngest son of Lord Garin of Harvest Hall, offered Winterfell common cause against quills. He named a frozen lake on the northern edge of the neck for parley, while the note warned that the Citadel had dispatched Knights of the Quill south from Moat Cailin to intercept. Alysanne listened, then tossed powdered pine resin into the hearth, sending sparks swarming like red wasps. "Renfred Baratheon seeks glory," she said. "Better a Baratheon's vanity than the maester's chains. Should we ride?" Theomore asked, glancing at her brother, Harrion Stark, who stood silent near the mead cask. "We ride," Alysanne confirmed. "If our scouts speak true, Quill knights travel light, scholars in jack chains. Shields of parchment, swords of borrowed blood." She bared teeth in a grin that showed why the South whispered of the Wolf Lady. Northmen know how to read fear in eyes, even if those eyes hide behind ink. She turned to the wounded courier. "Rest. You earn more than coin." The man nodded weakly. Perhaps he wondered if the northern winter would be kinder than the southern quills. South of the Orkwood, a salt wind flung spray against the prow of the Cog Bellringer, where Princess Maris Martell stood with arms crossed, cloak snapped behind her like a banner. She had not sailed for war, merely for speed. Islanders rumored to bow only to coin waited in Torturer's Deep, a hidden cove on the far side of the Broken Arm. Some called them corsairs, others privateers, but tithe enough coin and they became the prince's fleet, or so her quartermaster claimed. Maris muttered, "Kraken and sun alike drown," quoting prophecy with a scowl. "Yet no kraken sails this cove." "Not yet," said Mariah Sand, her shield bastard, who leaned on the rail with a scarlet scarf binding her braids. "When every lord fears maesters at the gate, better to fear pirates instead. Pirates kill quick, maesters bleed you by rumor." "Then?" "Let's see." Maris eyed the horizon where a black-hulled Drammen slipped between broken pillars of sea rock. "No sigils flew. That one carries our sellswords or our doom. Possibly both." Mariah's grin flashed. "Dorne thrives on sharp edges." The Drummond hailed them with 3 blasts of a brass trumpet. Maris's first mate answered, and soon ropes were cast. The pirates came aboard bearing casks of orange wine and a fat man who introduced himself as Captain Shalinar of the Free Isles. He bowed low to Maris. "Your Highness seeks teeth," Shalinar said in a voice as smooth as polished bone. "My fleet has a mouthful. Bite whom?" Maris handed him a sealed parchment. Those words contained 4 targets. 1 plume of smoke, 1 of snow, 1 of ink, 1 of tears. Each you will harry but not burn. We need chaos, not graves. Can you read glyphs? "A smattering," the captain replied, eyes flicking across Dorne's scrawl of sunbursts and serpent loops. "Enough to know who pays best." Maris nodded. "Then you'll know sun and kraken need never drown if the seas remain too choppy for dragons." Shalinar laughed. "Pirates love choppy seas. Smooth waters for carp." In the Riverlands, Lord Edmure Tully rode beneath gray branches that scraped the lowering sky. His boots splashed by mud, the color of old blood. At his side, Sir Desmond Mallister read aloud from a flimsy scroll newly received from Raventry. The Conclave of Archmaesters invites river lords to submit lineages for verification by the Feast of the Maiden Moon, under pain of being declared forfeit to prophecy. Edmure spat. "Verification." He tugged his reins so hard, his horse sidestepped. "My line traced back 10 generations in the Red Book. Will ink prove otherwise?" Mallister folded the scroll. "Blackwood ravens whisper dairy men rally to the Citadel's call. They harbor ancient grudge against Tullies. Ancient grudges bloom like lakeweed when stirred." Edmure snorted. "Knights of the Quill. Bah. Send word to Riverrun. Double patrols along the Tumblestone. If Quill men come, we'll treat them to arrows first, tea after. And the dairies. Let them come." Edmure's eyes hardened. "We'll verify lineage with steel." 5 days out from Old Town, Benric Waters sealed himself below decks of swan feather, and unfurled a square of lambskin, inked with a cipher. Only 3 men alive could read. He practiced, aloud yet whispering, the words he must speak when burying the dragonglass shards. Dark wings recall bright kings, so break the shell and name the fate. 7 shards for 7 truths, in stone and ash illuminate. The cadence mattered. Archmaester Ahriman had insisted it must be recited exactly 9 breaths between sentences. The final syllables exhaled over open flame. Benric possessed a travel brazier, no larger than a child's fist, and a vial of tar oil, to coax flame without smoke. He timed his breaths until he could have conducted the incantation even as arrows whistled overhead. Below the cipher another set of lines awaited. Stranger, roar. If blood denies the quill, the worm of doubt must burrow. Where worms find marrow, kings find solace in the knife. Benric read those lines once, then folded the parchment before his stomach pitched. He knew what it meant. If Daron or any other monarch refused the Citadel's guardianship, a worm would be introduced. Poison, rumor, treason, whatever eroded will. He wondered if Ahriman trusted him enough not to flinch when commanded to sow that worm. Night creaked around the hull. Somewhere above, gulls cried. Benric closed his eyes, saw the map of Westeros like veins in a dragon's wing. Sunspear, snow, crown, rose, kraken, quill. He saw lines connecting them, lines he now walked. Success binds forever, Ahriman had said. Benric felt the chain link of that truth tightening. Randyll Tarly arrived at Highgarden 2 hours past sundown, his knight's torches flickering along the dream-green avenues. Lady Olenn Tyrell greeted him atop the moonstone steps with stubborn composure. Her eldest son Willard tucked behind her skirts like a lion cub feigning courage. "My Lord Tarly," she said, offering her hand for him to kiss. "You arrive unannounced." Randyll bowed stiffly. The hour's urgency brooked no raven. Old Town whispers of testing children's blood. Rumor breeds discord. "I come to counsel, not capture." Olenn's lips tensed. A jest to mention capture, not jest. Randyll stepped aside so torchlight fell on his guards' sheathed swords. These blades remain quiet so long as prophecy remains ink, not iron. "I will not see Highgarden's heirs pawed by quillmen." Olenn's shoulders sagged, though pride kept her spine straight. "The conclave sent a maester this morning. He spoke of lineage verification. When I delayed, he spoke of nullifying Tyrell claims under the law of prophecies. I told him to sup with the pigs." Randyll barked a short laugh. "You've guts enough to feed pigs well." A faint smile as 2 dimples flickered in Olenn's cheeks, then vanished. "I thought to send ravens, yet with ravens now answering to Old Town. Thus I rode." Randyll's voice lowered. "We must show them the Reach has roots deeper than any quill can scratch. I'll host a council of bannermen within 3 days. You will attend with your children. We speak as one. Old differences, Tarly and Tyrell, put aside, leaves of the same rose." Randyll glanced at Willard's wide eyes. "Your boy will bear witness that his house is defended by the very men Old Town would make his gaolers." Olenn touched her son's hair. "I will come. Then the Reach stands." Randyll turned to descend the steps. "And if Old Town stands against, Old Town falls." In the courtyard, torch smoke curled up to a night sky whose stars looked like pinholes in prophecy's shroud. In the stepstones, black sails multiplied. Kezen's letters, carried by pigeons trained to fly across sea lanes, promised coin triple any house could spare. Captain Skoros Valentin, a Bravos's second son with an eye patch stitched from blue silk, spoke to his gather of captains beneath a sagging plank awning. They listened while waves slithered through gaps in the pier, their faces lit by cressets that spat briny sparks. "King's Landing staggers," Skoros said. "Old Town extends claws under guise of quills. Where chaos breeds, gold fattens." A woman with hair knotted around shells asked, "Who pays?" "2 purses," Skoros answered. "One from a Lycene merchant with eunuch tastes, likely the king's whisperer. Another from a Dornish princess." He shrugged. "Both heavy." A captain covered in henna tattoos spat into the sea. "Playing both sides draws crossbows from all. We sail as wind mercenaries." Koros replied, "No banner, but the iron coin. Burn no town, sink no fisherboats. We strike caravan after quill night caravan. They carry scrolls larger than swords. Break those, and rumors start. And when Old Town retaliates, we vanish into mist. The Citadel commands ravens, not whales. They cannot follow into open sea. Then a tranter. Another grumbled. And if they hire war galleys cost kings the coin they would spend forging chains. Skoros smiled. By the time those ships weigh anchor, maesters shall write a new prophecy calling for diplomacy. Skeptical laughter rustled like wind through dead reeds, but no captains walked away. Gold shone bright enough to dazzle caution. Kazan, arranging deals 2 seas away, knew this. He counted on it. He needed quills cracked. Enough to buy Daron time to heal or enough to topple him cleanly. Either outcome required the Citadel's prophecy to falter. Archmaester Valar awoke in a cold sweat within his monk-bear chamber and found a black candle burning on his writing table. Someone had placed it after he slept. The door's seal, wax stamped with his personal rune, remained intact. The candle's flame pulsed green. Valar recognized the work. Glass from the heart of 14 flames, bound in obsidian dust, lit by a phrase lost in doom. Eremon's flame. Valar rose, joints creaking, approached the candle, read the itinerant image swirling within. It was no prophecy but a warning. Arrows raining on the high tower, sails with roses charging upriver, parchment torn to tatters and thrown like confetti across corpses in scholar's gray. He saw himself among them. The Archmaester gripped his silver iron chain so hard links cut flesh. Balance, he whispered, recalling his argument with Eramon. Ink must not drown the world. He pulled on the cord behind his desk. A bell tinkled 2 floors above, summoning a page. Within minutes, a novice appeared, face drawn from lack of sleep. Archmaester, fetch Maester Wills. Steward of Ravens, Valar ordered. Tell him to prepare a flight to Highgarden, another to Horn Hill, and a third to Riverrun. I dictate 3 letters. The novice bowed. At once. Valar dipped quill to ink, yet paused. If Eramon discovered this correspondence, Valar's fate aligned with the image in that flame. But the Citadel possessed more than one voice. Some must speak caution. He wrote, quickly, to Lord Randall Tarley. Dark winds rise. The quill alone must not rule. Seek alliance with Tyrell and Tully. Guard the river passes. A storm of scrolls approaches. Bury them in water, and wait light's return. He sanded the parchment, then began 2 more letters. One, a warning to Edmure Tully. The other to the Lords Declarant of the Vale. He signed not with his name, but with the rune of the Old Town Owl, a society of maesters sworn to preserve balance and scholarship. Few lords still read that mark, but those who did knew it spoke above formal seals. When Wills arrived, pale-eyed and yawning, Valar handed him the letters. Fly them now, quietly. Wills hesitated. The conclave forbids intercepting Old Town decrees. These are not decrees, Valar hissed. They are truths, and truth outranks decree. Wills bowed, though questions burned behind his lips, and departed. Valar extinguished the black candle with a brass snuffer. Its stalk hissed, leaving a curl of smoke that smelled of rain on bone. The Archmaester slumped, wondering if a single owl could deter a murder of crows. Benric waters arrived on Dragonstone under slate clouds that threatened winter rains. The island's skull-shaped cliff loomed as if gnawing the storm. Swanfeather anchored in Blackwater Bay's eddy, and Benric hired a fisher skiff to bring him ashore with a single trunk and a brazier disguised as charcoal pot. The courtyards of the once great fortress now held more gulls than guards. A lone stable hand, gray-faced with fever, gave him directions to the old sept crypt, a collapsed chamber, half claimed by the sea. Benric pressed a copper into his palm and hurried on. Inside the crypt, wave echoes drummed like distant forges. Benric knelt amid rubble, set the brazier, and sprinkled tar oil onto charred driftwood. Flame leapt blue. He placed 3 dragonglass shards, arranged in a compass star. He recited the incantation. As the final word breathed over flame, each shard glowed then dimmed. A sound like kettle drums rumbled within the stone. The cracked vault overhead shed a trickle of dust. Benric listened for footsteps. None. He extinguished the flame and gathered his tools. Back in the courtyard, he saw a girl no older than 15 watching him from behind a half-toppled column. Her clothes were patched from sailcloth, hair wind snarled. She held a wooden pike with rusted head. "You the scholar from Lice?" she asked sharply. Benrick's hand slid to the hilt of his eating knife. "Who asks?" "Meles. I watch the gates." She studied him, eyes bright. "Storm told me a stranger would plant black fire in the bones of stone." "Storm is never wrong." Benrick's throat tightened. "Storm? My dragon," Meles answered, eyes widening at her own boldness. Dragon myths clung to Dragonstone like barnacles, though no living beast had shadowed its towers since Daenerys centuries ago. Benrick forced a smile. "Then tell Storm the bones are well fed." Meles nodded solemnly, then tilted her head. "What grows from bones?" "Truth," Benrick said before thinking. "Truth burns hotter than fire." The girl's gaze flickered past him toward the sea. "Storm knows." Benrick turned, half expecting to see wings. Only gulls wheeled. When he glanced back, Meles was gone. He exhaled shakily. Aramon would call it coincidence. Children overhear everything, shape it into fancies. Yet as Benrick boarded the skiff that would ferry him toward King's Landing, he felt eyes in the storm clouds. On a wind-swept moor north of the Neck, Lady Alysanne Stark met Lord Renfred Baratheon, beneath an ancient weirwood whose face had weathered until the eyes were hollow pools. Snow dusted the grass as two retinues faced one another across a circle of standing stones. Renfred dismounted first, signaling trust. He was shorter than Alysanne expected, barrel-chested, ginger-bearded. He removed one glove and pressed palm to heart. She mirrored him. "Quills seek to pen the North and the Stormlands both," Renfred said, breath fogging. "Our houses share little but pride. Prophecy would shear that pride. Better we unite than be trimmed." "Ben?" Alysanne studied him. "What do you propose?" Renfred glanced at the stones. "Old God's witness. Should the Citadel declare regency, our banners rise together. We march on the Neck to cut Old Town's Raven Road. From Moat Cailin to Len's Tor, no scroll shall cross." Alysanne folded arms. "The Neck belongs to the Crannogmen. They guard crossings with poison and lore. If we invade, they ally with whomever offers less bloodshed. The Citadel's honeyed words may sway them, then give them sweeter honey." Renfred's grin flashed. "Land grants, timber rights, names carved alongside Stark and Baratheon in a shield of common cause. Then?" Alysanne nodded slowly. "A charter. I will draft one, and mind that Crannog ink is promised, not only gold." "Agreed." Renfred extended a gloved hand, palm up. "By stone and storm?" Alysanne placed her bare hand atop his. "By snow and stone." Their retinues exhaled, as though all held breath through the negotiation. Renfred withdrew his hand, clenched fist over chest. "I ride south to muster. Send word when the charter is sealed." He remounted. Alysanne watched him go, snow swirling like torn parchment. She saw a future where dragons of ink fought wolves and stags. Better to be the claw than the parchment. 20 leagues east of King's Landing, on the King's Road, a company of 30 riders in dun cloaks trotted north under a banner depicting an open book bleeding 7 streams of ink. They were the first openly declared Knights of the Quill. Their leader, Sir Baelor Head of Honeyholt, wore half-maester's chain over leather scale. Pouches at every saddle bulged with scrolls. They reached a crossroads inn at dusk, only to find its signpost toppled. A single arrow pinned a scrap of parchment to the post's stump. Sir Baelor dismounted. "Read. Your prophecies here invite plague of steel. Turn south, or bleed north till quills rust red." Baelor crumpled the note. "Bandit bravado," he scoffed to his lieutenants. "We ride on." The inn's shutters creaked open. An old woman poked her head, eyes shining. Road north is cursed tonight. Hells of prophecy. Baylor paid her no heed. They rode another mile before the attack. Arrows lanced from tree line, punching through Maester's chain like fishhooks through parchment. Horses screamed. Riders tumbled. A half-circle of brigands emerged, faces hidden by gray wolf hoods, bows already knocked for second volley. Baylor drew his longsword, for knowledge and realm. Yet before he could charge, a horn sounded from behind. Another band burst from the southern road, wearing boiled leather embossed with sunbursts. The Quill Knights found themselves trapped between wolf and sun. Steel clashed. Scrolls tumbled into mud. Baylor fought, but a spear found his ribs. He sank, staring at the banner bleeding ink onto autumn leaves. When the wolves and suns withdrew, they left horses lamed, riders gutted, scrolls trampled. A single brigand lingered, a wiry man whose hood slipped to reveal tattooed palm trees on his cheek. He searched corpses, locating a sealed tube of green leather. Slipping it into his satchel, he disappeared into shadow, humming a sea shanty. In Highgarden, Randall Tarley opened an owl-marked letter delivered by stealth. He read, brow furrowing. "What is it?" asked Lady Oline. "Another maester's voice," Randall said, passing her the parchment. "An owl opposes a quill. Advises alliance of reach and river and vale. Then, D." Oline scanned it, yet signed with no name. Could be trap. Could. Randall stroked beard. "But advice suits our intent. I will send riders to River Run and the Erie, propose counsel of grain and steel." Oline bit her lip. "If these letters prove divisive attempt," Randall shrugged, "then we divide their plot by accepting unity." A horn blew at the outer wall. A steward entered breathless. "Sir, Archmaester Ormond of the Reach requests audience, bearing scroll of regency." Randall exchanged glance with Oline. "We delay. Make him wait in the map garden." "Nah." Oline raised brows. "Courtesy." Randall smiled grimly. "No. Vulnerability. Garden has no walls, only sightlines." Within the hour, Randall and Oline approached Archmaester Ormond, beneath sculpted boxwoods. The Archmaester bowed, chain glinting. "My lords," Ormond intoned. "By decree of the conclave, Highgarden submits genealogy for verification." Randall folded arms. "By decree of the gods, children are innocent. You'd bleed them for ink." "Knowledge demands sacrifice," Ormond replied evenly. "Better parchment cuts than swords." Randall's hand rested on pommel. "Swords answer parchment when parchment drips blood." Ormond glanced at Oline. "Perhaps the lady is more pragmatic." Oline stepped forward. "Pragmatism kept my gardens watered and my children warm. Pragmatism now skulks behind false prophecy." "No," Ormond sighed, as though disappointed in a slow pupil. "Then Highgarden stands in rebellion. Highgarden stands in truth." Randall gestured. Archers in concealed alcoves knocked arrows. Ormond paled. Randall leaned close. "Ride back to Old Town with 2 messages. First, we will not bend. Second, we watch the road to your library. See you keep your ravens on leashes." "Now." Ormond swallowed, turned, and departed with his small escort, arrowheads shadowing his spine until he exited the gate. Oline exhaled shakily. "War then?" Randall nodded. "War of scrolls, but war." In Old Town's conclave chamber, a circular hall hung with banners bearing every known sigil of scholarship. Ahriman addressed a ring of archmaesters. Maps lay unrolled across the stone table, weighted by candle holders shaped like owl talons. "Highgarden defies us," declared Archmaester Lonel. "Link of gold glittering. Randall Tarley threatens the road." "Let him," Ahriman answered. "Our couriers favor the sea. A single cog can carry more scrolls than 20 riders." "And if pirates seize them?" asked Shet, master of numbers. "Pirates are men," Ahriman said. "Men read. We write letters promising amnesty, coin, islands made free of tax. They will guard our ships rather than raid them." Amid murmurs, Valar cleared his throat. What if horns sounded in the north? Reports say Baratheon and Stark meet. Man. Old rumors, Eramon deflected. The north and Stormlands share no cause. Valar fixed him with weary eyes. Causes shift like sand under storm. We overreach. Eramon rested palms on the map. Knowledge must command. If thrones oppose, thrones fall. He pointed to each region with a dagger tip. The reach bleeds by doubt. The riverlands drift. Dorne flirts with pirates, but fears dragons yet unborn. The north stands alone once the Stormlands face our fleets at Massey's Hook. Shet frowned. We possess no fleets. We will hire them, Eramon said. Shalanar sails for Dorne. He shall sail for us instead, once coin speaks louder than Martell promises. Valar's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Eramon rolled the map. Within one moon's turn, lords will beg the Citadel to end chaos we did not create, but merely revealed. Then archmaesters will not urge rule. They will be begged to rule. Some nodded. Others glanced away. Hearts uneasy. Eramon saw both and marked his allies. On Dragonstone, night deepened. In the collapsed crypt, the 3 dragonglass shards pulsed faintly, beating like hearts. Beneath Maegor's holdfast in King's Landing, the 4 shards Benric had hidden earlier that day stirred. Humming so softly even rats fled the tunnels. No maester heard, no king sensed. Yet those shards linked however far apart, forming a pattern in stone. And across that pattern, energy flowed like ink through veins, drawing a symbol older than dragons. A quill crossed by a sword, within a broken crown. Lord Edmure Tully knelt before the godswood at River Run. Snow swirling although the calendar claimed autumn still. He prayed not for victory but clarity. Words came in the rustle of leaves. Quills, crowns, rivers red. He rose, face set, and ordered ravens dispatched. Though which ravens could be trusted? He recalled the owl rune in Randall's letter. Perhaps owls flew when ravens could not. He penned a reply to Highgarden. We meet at Maidenpool, a neutral harbor. If lords of Reach and River join, the Vale may follow. Bring truth. Bring archers. The line between them blurs. He signed with the leaping trout, sealed in dark blue wax, and handed it to a courier on fast horse, circumventing rookery. The courier left at dawn as red sun spilled across the tumblestone, tinting the river like a ribbon of prophecy. Far inland, a small band of wandering septons camped by a ruined holdfast. They spoke of recent nightmares, ink turning to blood, children born with quills instead of fingers. One old woman claimed to have seen visions of the Citadel itself aflame. A younger septon, eyes bright with zeal, listened, then hauled a sack from his mule. From it, he produced scrolls bearing Old Town seals. Lightbringer burns away false prophecy, he declared. He fed the scrolls to the campfire. Orange flame licked high, ash spiraling into star-studded dark. The others watched silent until the scrolls were gone. Then they added their own. By dawn, 26 parchments smoldered. Word of the burning traveled with pilgrims, and somewhere a seed of rebellion burst into bloom, tiny yet stubborn. Benric Waters reached the outskirts of King's Landing at moonrise. He bribed a gate guard with a story of delivering rare inks to Grand Maester Pacel. Inside, he left his horse at a stable and skirted torchlit streets until he found a narrow alley near the Sept of Baelor. There he pried a sewer grate and descended, brazier in one hand, leather satchel clenched. He navigated tunnels by torch stub, past blind eels and congealed dredges, until he crouched beneath Maegor's holdfast. The chill air thrummed, the shards calling. He located them behind a loose stone slab. Endoloi. They pulsed at his touch. He placed them in a circle and lit the brazier. He intoned the incantation a second time. As the last syllable hovered in air, a tremor rippled through the ground, rising like a beast awakening. Above, bells clanged. The city's nightly curfew, or something else. Benric extinguished flame, replaced the slab. When he stood, a shadow detached from the tunnel wall. A dagger gleamed. Hold, a voice hissed. Horse. Female. Benric froze. The shadow stepped into flickering torchlight. It was the hooded brigand from the crossroads ambush, the tattered woman with shell hair now wearing rags of the small folk. She raised the dagger, but her eyes fixed on the satchel. "You carry the same leather as the dead Quill Knight," she said. "What poison ghosts does it hold?" Benric forced calm. "Fragments of knowledge. Not for brigands. Bentuen. Knowledge kills." She advanced. "Give it and live." Benric's mind whirled. Fight and die, or surrender Aramon's secrets. But perhaps there was third path. He reached into satchel, produced a normal raven scroll. Not the shards. "Take. Names of merchants hoarding grain. Worth coin." She grabbed, retreated 2 paces. Unrolled. Ink shimmered. "If lies, I return for your eyes." She vanished into darkness. Footsteps silent as myth. Benric's knees buckled. He exhaled. Then he heard distant rumbling, stone grinding on stone. Somewhere deeper in the tunnels. Not from shard ritual. Something older. He hurried away, torch sputtering. Above ground, King's Landing slept fitfully, unaware its foundations shifted. Archmaester Valar stood on a gallery balcony and watched the beacon of the Hightower flicker. The night smelled of brine and iron. Behind him, a parchment lay open on a desk. A draft addressed to all students of knowledge, incriminating Aramon's manipulation. 2,000 words of confession. But to send it would mean civil war within the Citadel. Old wolves devouring pups. Footsteps approached. Valar turned. Aramon stepped from shadow, face inscrutable. "You correspond behind my back." Valar's pulse kicked. "We must temper your flame." Aramon's gaze flicked to the parchment. He took it, read a line, then another. "You name me tyrant. I name you necessary caution unheeded." Valar squared shoulders. "End this before ink turns crimson." Aramon rolled the parchment, slid it into his sleeve. Ink inevitably turns crimson when history is written. But it dries, and the page endures. Valar shook his head. "Not if burned." Aramon's lips curved faintly. "You will not burn it. You care too much for parchment." "No. I will, if realm needs. Realm needs strong quill." Aramon's hand brushed Valar's chain. "Rest, old friend. The storm you fear is but seasonal. When spring comes, our quills will blossom into peace." He withdrew, leaving Valar trembling. Valar stared at the emptiness. Somewhere beyond stone and sea, he sensed shards humming, lords sharpening swords, small folk burning scrolls. Spring seemed far. He whispered into the wind, hoping old gods or new might hear. "May quills snap before hearts." On the Stormland's coast, lightning cracked. Lord Renfred Baratheon's war camp bustled. Smiths reforging flails, carpenters carving charters for Crannog lords. A scout galloped in, muddy cloak streaming. "Moat Caelan flies a new banner," he cried. "Open book within broken crown." Renfred cursed. "They move fast." He led lieutenants to the command pavilion and studied a charcoal map. "Dot do way. Cutting the Raven Road means naught if quillmen hold the moat. We assault?" A veteran knight shook head. "Necks mired swamp, towers narrow. Siege ladders drown." Renfred drummed fingers. "Find the Crannogmen. Offer them doubled rights if they open back gate." "Nendam chai." "Dangerous," someone murmured. Renfred shrugged. "So is prophecy." They set tasks. As thunder rolled out to sea, Renfred recalled stark eyes like winter glass, and knew war crept closer than any prophecy could chart. Captain Shalinar met Archmaester Shet aboard the Cog-Eye of Providence, 3 leagues off Cape Wrath. Wine dulled tongues while coin clinked. "Princess Maris offers 20,000 stag." Shalinar said, swirling goblet. "You double." Shet tapped a ledger. "More than double. We offer legitimacy." "Da." "Legitimacy is breath on glass." Shalinar grinned. "Coin buys cannons." Shet's eyes hardened. "Dragons may return. Alliances may now decide who burns." Shalinar laughed. but his gaze flicked to a black storm building north. I sail for profit. Yet profit sails best on calm seas. Give me half up front. Chet produced a wooden coffer, unlocked. Gold crowns gleamed. Done, Shalinar said, pocketing a coin. Which sails we strike? Pirates, Chet replied. Your own. Cull fleets refusing our bargain. Shalinar's grin froze. My men consider me lord. Then prove their loyalty. Chet snapped coffer shut. Or find yourself poor and hunted. The captain weighed possibilities. Pirate's oath bends like reed, he said. I can bend them toward the conclave. Chet nodded. Do so quickly. The realm turns, and the Citadel writes the turning. Lightning flashed, illumining faces set with avarice and dread. Back in King's Landing, King Darren III dreamt of scrolls unspooling around his throat, choking. He woke coughing blood into silk pillows. The Queen sobbed quietly, wiping his lips. Grand Maester Picel hovered, offering a tonic. Darren waved it aside. Bring Orwile, he rasped. I must know the test is pure. Picel shuffled away. The Queen whispered, My love, trust the Maesters. They saved your life. Darren stared at chamber ceiling where painted dragons coiled like chains. They want my throne. Ink sees no crown but its own. Then fight. With what? My court fractures. My blood betrays me. He closed eyes. If only Aegon's blood still burned. He coughed. Dragons ended when prophecy stagnated. The Queen kissed his brow. We will find a cure. Darren thought of small folk rioting, wolves and stags marching, roses bristling. Cure soon, he whispered. Elsie quills write our epitaph. Outside, bells rang the hour of ghosts. Somewhere underfoot, shards throbbed. In the rural Crownlands village of Hysund, a traveling maester read the Citadel's decree aloud atop an ale cart. Peasants muttered, some spat. Among them, a tall farmhand. Hob, simple yet kind, asked. What's lineage? The maester explained, voice nasal. Bloodlines traced in ledgers, pure lines rule justly. Hob frowned. My mother's ledger be her bread recipe. Laughter rippled. The maester, flustered, declared, those who fail tests risk removal. Hob raised hoe. Remove us where? Field won't plow itself. The maester stepped back. The crown decrees. Crown or quill? Hob asked. Hazend needs none. A woman shouted. Others nodded. The maester called for town guard. 2 aging veterans. They hesitated. The crowd swelled. The maester fled. Word of Hysund's defiance traveled along byways. The Citadel's authority, once unquestioned, sprouted cracks in villages far from court. Ehrman heard reports and smiled, for cracks scared lords more than walls collapsing. Fear would drive them to beg for order. He had only to wait until fear peaked. Randall Tarley stood before council of Reach lords, bees of House Beesbury, huntsmen of Oakhart, archers of Rowan. Maps littered the long table, candles guttering. We march not on Old Town, Randall announced, but on its influence. Patrol roads intercept ravens, shelter maesters who dissent. Deny Ahriman monopoly on knowledge. Lord Rowan frowned. How shelter dissent without sheltering spies? Owls are friends, Randall said, referencing Velar's letters. Quills nest in wolf's mouth. The metaphor puzzled some, emboldened others. An Oakhart knight asked, and if Citadel sends armies? Maesters hire swords. We birth them. Randall unsheathed Heartsbane, its Valyrian steel flashing. The Reach stands tall when others kneel. Let's remind quills we command plows and scythes double as blades. Cheers rang. In a corner, Lady Olene's young son stared at Heartsbane, reflecting firelight, and dreamed of futures where books bled. At Riverrun Smithy, Edmure Tully inspected a reforged banner pole. Trout leaps, he mused, yet now leaps through ink. He asked the smith to etch a quill snapped in 2 beneath his sigil. Symbol of freedom, he said. We swim best when nets are cut. He rode to Maidenpool with 500 men. Along the way, villages joined, bearing pitchforks, hammers, fishing spears. By the time they reached the harbor, 3,000 stood under blue-red banners, all murmuring varied prophecies, but united in refusing the Citadel's singular one. Edmure sent word to Highgarden and the Eyrie, "We gather. Bring wheat, not merely steel. Starved hearts sign any scroll." In a mountain eyrie carved into the giant's lance, Lord Jeremy Arryn debated with Maester Collis. "If blood tests prove us false, Vale lords lose claim." Collis adjusted glasses. "Then your lordship supports the conclave?" "No," Jeremy said. "I support truth. If my bloodline fails, so be it. But rumors conflict. One prophecy says a snow-winged tyrant. Another says lion of stone. Which is truth?" "Benderwansch." Maester Collis hesitated. "Prophecy can wield metaphor." Jeremy snorted. "Metaphor crowns kings with corpses." He turned to a falconer. "Send bird to Maidenpool. The Vale will listen but will not kneel." Collis watched falcons soar, knowing the Citadel's net loosened even here. He wondered if Aramon feared how quickly nets frayed when pulled against mountain winds. Atop the high tower, Aramon surveyed sea fog. Benrick's raven perched on his wrist, letter tube tied to its leg. He removed parchment, read the coded report of shards planted. He whispered, "Phase 3 begins." From a coffer he removed a thin dagger of Valyrian steel, carved with glyphs of quills entwined. He sliced his palm, letting blood bead, then dabbed it onto a blank scroll. Blood formed symbols that wriggled like fish devouring eggs. He rolled the scroll, sealed with black wax. "Fly," he told the raven. It took wing toward the east. Below, the city bells announced dawn. Merchants opened stalls. Sailors haggled. None knew history's ink dried slowly above their heads, or that a drop of blood could write an era. In the tunnels under King's Landing, the tremor Benrick felt widened cracks. Sewage shifted. An old vault door, sealed since Maegor's reign, groaned open. Air smelling of brimstone wafted out. No man witnessed. Within that vault, something gleamed. A scale? A bone? A shard of dream. The shards in the holdfast pulsed stronger, drinking the vault's breath. Above, King Daeron shivered in fever. A guard at the maiden vault remarked to another, "Feel that?" Floor shook. The other shrugged. Too much wine. Neither believed earthquake, though phantom of prophecy deepened. Benrick, now disguised as a scribe, rented room at an inn off the Street of Silk. He soaked his travel clothes in vinegar to mask dragonglass smell. At night he wrote in cipher. Shards planted. Shadow threatened in sewer. Female rogue. Suggest elimination or recruit. City unrest grows. Panic near bread markets. Recommend amplifying. He sealed letter with plain wax. Would deliver to an ink peddler contact at the Purple Harbor. He considered writing about the tremor, but decided it might reveal his ritual location. Some secrets even Aramon must not know until safe. Benrick lay back, staring at cracked ceiling, and remembered Maelys's words. Truth burns hotter than fire. He wondered if the crypt shards kindled truth or something far hotter. At Sunspear, Princess Maris received word that Captain Shalinar defected. Her cheek twitched. She ordered Mariah Sand to dispatch corsairs to hunt him. Mariah replied, "Pirates may side with coin. We can match." "Not coin," Maris said. "Honor. Dot. Promise them plunder of Old Town's vaults. Then seen. That vault holds more dust than gold." "But dust of dragons," Maris answered. "Tell them the Citadel hoards knowledge worth more than rubies." Spells. Maps to hidden Valyrian forges. Pirates crave wonder as much as wealth. Mariah smiled. "I'll spin that yarn." Night once more cloaked Old Town. Valar crept to the rookery, carrying a satchel of scrolls condemning Aramon. Inside, ravens rustled. Willows met him. Drew bolt. "Archmaester," Wills whispered. The conclave posted extra guards. They trust ravens yet fear owls, Valar said. Owls will fly anyway. He tied letters to 3 white ravens, birds reserved for momentous news. He whispered destinations. Winterfell, High Garden, River Run. Willis opened the door. The ravens burst into night, pale ghosts. Valar exhaled, unaware of eyes in shadow. Benrick's rogue, the woman with shell hair, watched from a parapet. She slipped away to report to Kazan, for information paid better than daggers. As ravens flew, Ehrman stood at his window, feeling the air shift, though he did not know why. He poured wine, tasted iron. Storm soon, he murmured. Malus on Dragonstone awoke to thunder. She climbed a broken stair to the roof where wind tore at her cloak. In the distant east, faint green lights flickered low on horizon. Host fires on the sea. She felt storms stir in her dreams, wings beating inside her chest. She whispered, "Truth burns." Lightning revealed stone gargoyles snarling. She imagined them alive. Somewhere beneath the fortress, shards pulsed. She closed her eyes. In that instant, faint roar rolled through stone. Dragon or storm? She smiled, fearless. "Let them test blood," she said. "They'll spill their own before ours." Her words vanished into wind, but the sea carried them, and perhaps dragons listen less to prophecy than to conviction. The shards beneath Maegor's holdfast glowed until seams between them fused, forging a sigil of quillsword crown in molten glass. A pulse erupted, subtle yet far-reaching. Ravens across the city screeched. Glass windows sang. Pycelle dropped a vial. It shattered. King Daeron's fever broke abruptly, replaced by a chilling clarity. He sat upright. "Fire and stone," he whispered. The queen startled. "Your grace? Bring me the high septon," Daeron commanded. "And call the captains of the city watch. No prophecy will decide my children's fate save my own." He swung legs from bed, trembling but alive. His eyes, once cloudy, burned. At that same moment, the glass candle on Ehrman's desk spluttered, flame twisting black for a heartbeat. He scowled. "Benrick," he said, "what have you awakened?" He rang a bell. A novice entered. "Fetch the keeper of the vault, under the ocean door. We verify the wards." Then, as the novice scurried, Ehrman stared at his candle, seeing images fracture. Daeron rising, Meleys laughing, Valar's white ravens streaking north and west. He clenched fist until his palm wound reopened. Blood dripping onto scrolls. The blood spread, forming shapes of quills snapped. Crowns overturned. Ehrman inhaled calm. "Every prophecy resists before surrender," he told himself. We bent it back. But in the hush afterward, he thought he heard distant wings not of ravens, but something older, heavier, scorching. On the stepstones, Captain Skoros Valentin ordered his galleys to intercept Shalinar. Battle erupted under starlight, crossbows twanged, deck boards burned. Skoros's flagship, the Sapphire Moth, rammed Shalinar's Drummond, boarding hooks flying. Amid smoke, Skoros faced Shalinar dual blade to cutlass. "Coin from Hightower heavier, eh?" Shalinar taunted. "Freedom heavier." Skoros replied. They clashed. Sparks flew. Shalinar slashed Skoros's thigh. Skoros drove dagger into Shalinar's side. Shalinar stumbled, laughing, and toppled overboard into black water. Pirates watched, uncertain. Skoros raised bloodied cutlass. "No master but death," he shouted. Yet death sells prophecy dear. They roared, uncertain but blood-hungry. The stepstones bled anew. Far away, Shet received word of Shalinar's demise and wept for lost investment. Ehrman received word and adjusted calculations. Less mercenary guard on seas, but fear of pirates grew. A net snaps, but strands remain useful. Benrick delivered his coded letter to the ink peddler. He returned to his inn, only to find his door ajar. Inside, a single object lay on bed. The scroll stolen by the rogue in the sewer. She had returned. On its blank side she had scrawled, "Truth burns us both." Meet moonrise at Blackwater Rush, alone. Benrick swallowed. He hid his ritual tools and checked his stiletto. Outside, bells clanged for midnight. The city baked in tension. He whispered, "Success binds forever," and stepped into night. Unsure if he walked to alliance or doom. Over the neck, white ravens streaked. One dipped wings, as if guidance from unknown hand, toward Greywater Watch, where Cranagman tracked sky messages sharper than lords. The raven landed on a thatch roof. Mira Reed lifted it, retrieved Valar's warning. Her father, Lord Howland, read and nodded. "Stark and Baratheon offer charter," he said. "Citadel offers chains. The choice is rivers over ink." He penned reply, promising hidden paths through the moat for northern forces, on condition of shared tongue in new charter, recognition of Crannog rights. The raven flew north. Alliances tightened. Renford Baratheon received it days later and grinned. The neck opens. The quills break at the spine. Alysanne Stark read same letter and allowed herself a rare laugh. "Crannog honey is sweet." She sharpened her sword. 500 leagues south, Long Table's fields burned. Unknown riders torched grain stores, leaving a sigil cut into earth. Broken quill. Lord Mathis Rowan thought Tarly men until he found scrolls with owl seals nearby. Confusion spread. Prophecy twisted in ashes. Valar's ravens carried truth, but others sowed lies. Both flapped, feathers intermingled. The sky above Westeros blackened with wings and doubt. The Citadel's main library grew tumultuous. Apprentices whispered of white ravens. Archmaesters glared. Valar confronted Eramon openly before the starry sept altar. "Withdraw regency. Houses unite against." "Messimim now," Eramon replied, voice echoing under dome. "When dogs bark, shepherds step forward." Valar raised voice. "You risk war of faith. High Septon queries your authority. High Septon reads from books we wrote." Eramon said coldly, "He will obey revisions." Valar, trembling with rage, strode away to rally other cautious maesters. Each step felt like stepping off cliff. But if he fell, he wanted to know he tried to fly. At King's Landing's Blackwater Rush, moon-glossed river pewter, Benrick waited under willow. The rogue appeared, dagger sheathed, hands visible. She introduced herself. "Taylor of the Shattered Isles." Benrick inclined head. "You returned scroll." "Why?" Taylor's shell hair clinked. "Because prophecy stole my brothers to wars not theirs. Because you plant shards. I want end to quills." Benrick softened. "I plant to guide, not kill." "Guide to what?" She snorted. "Citadel crown?" Benrick hesitated. Taylor saw. "Data more. You doubt them." "I believe knowledge must rule," Benrick said. But knowledge twisted. Like shards under city. He stiffened. She laughed quietly. "I shadowed you. I felt tremor. Something wakes." Benrick swallowed. "We cannot stop. Then shape outcome," Taylor said. "I steal scrolls. Spread word among gutters. You feed me truths. We make small folk resist." Benrick considered. "Betray Eramon, or use Taylor to temper extremes." He nodded slowly. "We share." Taylor extended hand. Benrick clasped. Alliance born in moonlight. In the Eyrie, Jeremy Aaron's falcon returned with parchment from Maidenpool. Alliance of river and reach forming. Jeremy ordered mobilization. Maester Collis watched falcons swirl, thinking prophetic of real birds rather than quills. He penned a private letter to Valar. "The Vale steps away from Citadel's edict. Remove Eramon or watchtowers crumble." He sealed it with mountain rune, sent by Brown Falcon, trained to fly Old Town. Days later, Valar received it. Hope rekindled, but Eramon intercepted. He read, sighed, and set letter to flame. "So the Vale sides with fools." He summoned scribes to pen decree labeling Aaron Lion, descendant of bastard scribe. Another wedge. Winter's first snows dusted the gift. Melees on Dragonstone burnt seaweed to keep warm. She dreamt of shards linking like constellations. In dream, she saw a dragon hatch, wings ink, breath parchment. It soared, breathing flame that erased words from sky. She woke smiling. 5 hours before dawn on the last day of the moon, King Daron convened secret council. Ser Jorah, Kazan, Pycelle, and the High Septon. He declared prophecy manipulation treason. Orders. Arrest Maester Orwyle, seal Citadel embassies, send embassies to lords inviting council in King's Landing to declare independence from Old Town. High Septon agreed, quoting scripture. Quills may guide scripture, but scripture guides crowns. Pycelle quailed yet obeyed. Kazan offered Stepstone's mercenaries to guard supply lines. Ser Jorah volunteered Kingsguard to storm Orwyle's quarters. That night, Orwyle died resisting arrest. Some say by Ser Jorah's blade, others by cyanide hidden in ring. Regardless, Throne struck first blow. Eramon learned at dawn via Raven. His calm cracked. They move sooner, he whispered. He summoned conclave, declared emergency. But Valar and 2 others refused, protesting death of a maester. Eramon ordered their chains removed. They resisted. Brothers turned on brothers. The Citadel split. The War of Quills began not with swords but with links of chain clashing on marble as scholars fought. Scrolls torn, candles toppled. Outside, Old Town's first snowflake fell. Rare, thin, but portentous. And across Westeros, from snow-blank Winterfell to sun-baked Sunspear, hearts beat faster, waiting to see whether ink would drown steel or steel would sever quill. Above them all, shards pulsed, dragons dreamed and prophecy. Shaken free of masters, spread its wings to choose its own flight at last.